Hello students, today we will be talking about business plan and feasibility analysis. After studying this module, you shall be able to understand what is feasibility analysis, learn about the various steps involved in conducting feasibility analysis, understand the reasons and benefits of developing a business plan, describe the important elements of a business plan, learn about the 5 C's of credit and their importance to potential investors and lenders reading the business plan. Now let's have some introduction about the two topics. Coming up with an idea might be one of the easiest stages for an entrepreneurial venture. A successful business requires much more than just a great idea. Once the entrepreneur has identified the idea he wants to go forward with, he needs to do a feasibility analysis to determine whether the wonderful idea can be converted into a viable business opportunity or not. If the idea does not pass the feasibility analysis, the entrepreneur should drop it and look for a new idea. In case the idea passes the feasibility analysis, the next step for the entrepreneur is to build a solid business plan for the same. Now, feasibility analysis is not the same as the business plan. Both of them play important but separate parts for a new business venture. While feasibility analysis acts more like an investigative tool to give the entrepreneur a realistic idea about the potential of his business idea under the current circumstances and also an option for an early exit for non-viable business idea. Business plan, on the other hand, is more of a planning tool for transforming the entrepreneur's idea into reality. It is a working plan describing how the idea which has passed the feasibility analysis can now be turned into a successful business venture. Now, this chapter describes how to build and use both of these vital business documents. Let's talk about feasibility analysis first. Feasibility analysis is the preliminary evaluation of the business idea to determine whether it is worth pursuing or not. In other words, it provides a framework by which a go or not to go decision can be reached for the business idea. Also, a well-rounded feasibility study can act as a foundation for a full-fledged business plan. Although it is not possible for a feasibility study to guarantee the success of an idea, conducting it warns the entrepreneur about wasting their valuable time pursuing fruitless or flawed business ventures. Feasibility analysis particularly helps the entrepreneurs when they need to winnow down to the best choice from a number of available ideas. It helps the entrepreneurs to evaluate the practicality of each of the several potential ideas of transforming ideas into good startups. The entrepreneur might realize that the idea, however great it might sound, does not have the potential to become a successful business venture. Now, how do we conduct this feasibility analysis? It is said that before investing any time and effort in making a full-fledged business plan, it makes sense to subject your business concept to critical evaluation at an early stage to be able to discover, address and correct any fundamental or fatal flaws. Feasibility analysis consists of 3 interrelated concepts. First, industry or market feasibility, product or service feasibility and last, financial feasibility. First, let's talk about industry or the market feasibility. For analyzing the feasibility of the proposed business idea, it is important for the entrepreneur to conduct a basic study of the target market or the industry. Industry and market feasibility can be defined as the overall appeal of the industry or the market for the product being proposed. Here, the entrepreneur should focus on two aspects. The first, which is the industry or market attractiveness, and second, identification of a niche market. Let's talk about industry and market attractiveness first. The first step here is to assess the industry or the market from a macro point of view. This includes finding answers to some of the basic questions like, is the industry large enough? Is it growing at an expected or a good rate? Is it profitable as a whole? How are the profit margins in the industry? Do the customers value the products and services offered by the industry? How do the future prospects of the industry look? Is the industry overcrowded? Is the level of competition in the industry too intense? Or which stage is the industry in? Is it young, mature, or somewhere in between? This analysis can be done through primary as well as secondary research. Under primary research, the entrepreneur might talk to potential customers, key industry participants in order to get the industry information. Under secondary research, the researcher can probe the data already collected. The data sources can be industry related publications, competitors' websites, government statistics, and industry reports from research firms. A useful tool for analyzing an industry's attractiveness is a model developed by Michael E. Porter at Harvard Business School called the Porter's 5 Forces Model. Under the Porter's 5 Forces Model, the attractiveness of the industry and the setting in which companies compete can be assessed by analyzing how the 5 forces in the model interact with each other. The 5 forces in this model are: first, rivalry among competitive firms. So, rivalry among the firms competing in a particular industry or the market is one of the strongest forces, and it is affected by factors like number of firms, market growth, switching costs, exit barriers, and product differentiation. The second force is bargaining power of the suppliers. The greater the leverage that the suppliers of key raw material or components have, the less attractive the industry or the market becomes. Third force is bargaining power of the buyers. Another source of pressure can be the buyers, who also have the potential to exert significant power over the business, making it less attractive. The fourth force in the Porter's 5 forces model is threat of new entrants. As the potential number of new entrants to an industry increases, the threat to already existing firms also keep on increasing. For example, in industries where the barriers to entry such as capital requirements, specialized knowledge, access to distribution channels and other are low, the industry becomes less attractive. The fifth force in the Porter's 5 forces model is threat of substitute products or services. If the product or service from another industry or market provides the same or similar benefits to the consumers as the product or service from this given industry or market, then it affects the competitive environment in the given industry and influences the profitability for the firms operating in the industry. If this threat is high, the industry or market definitely becomes less attractive. It is only after the entrepreneur has evaluated the power of the 5 forces that we have discussed and analyzed the potential for his proposed venture to generate a reasonable profits in a particular industry, should he make an informed decision about whether or not to continue with the proposed venture. Now, the second point to be discussed in the market or industry feasibility is identification of a niche market. The next step for the feasibility analysis for the market or the industry is the identification of possible attractive niches. A niche market is a place within a larger market segment that represents a narrower group of customers with similar interests. Calcium Sandoz Women or Horlicks for Women are prime examples of marketers finding niches. We are talking about finding niche market for a new firm because, first of all, instead of trying to deliver everything to everybody in a relatively broad market or industry, which is largely impossible for a new entrant, the firm can focus on serving a specialized or a niche market to the best of its abilities. Second, a new entrant can establish itself within the industry or market without competing against a big or an already established player directly. The secret to the prosperity of many small businesses in the market is sticking to niches that are too small to attract the attention of the large competitors. Entrepreneurs can also exploit the niches to their advantage, designing focus or differentiation strategies for the companies. Occupying an industry niche enables the business to shield itself to some extent from prying eyes of the big competitors. The second point in feasibility analysis is the product or service feasibility. After assessing the market or the industry, the entrepreneur needs to assess the overall appeal of the product or the service being proposed. The idea here is that the firm or the entrepreneur should be confident about the want of its product or service in the market before rushing it into the development stage or into the market. The determination of the degree to which a product or service idea appeals to or is wanted by the potential customers and identifies the resources necessary to produce the product or to provide the service is known as product or service feasibility analysis. The important question to be answered here is whether or not the potential customers are willing to buy our goods or services. Now, this question can be answered by two types of tests. First is the concept testing. This is a technique to gauge customers' interest or purchase intent by showing a representation of the good or service to the prospective users. Three important reasons to do concept testing are: first, to develop the idea; second, to evaluate the underlying premise of the good or service that an entrepreneur thinks is compelling; third, to get a good idea about the estimated market share that the good or service might be able to capture. Things to be included in concept testing are: first, a brief description of the good or service; second, the benefits that the users of goods or service will get; third, any unique selling proposition that the good or service might have; fourth, a brief description about the positioning of the good or service relative to similar products, if any. Next, the intended target market for the good or service. Second last, a brief description about selling and distribution techniques to be used, and in the end, information about the company or the founder of the firm. The second testing that the entrepreneur needs to do is usability testing. Once the product passes the concept testing stage, usually a prototype or a model of the good or service is made, and again customer feedback is sought. Even though rushing a good or service in the market might be tempting, but conducting a usability test might prove to be a good investment. Under this technique, the potential users are asked to perform certain tasks or use the prototype to measure the product's ease of use and give feedback on the user's perception of the experience. Usability test might also be called beta tests, user tests or field trials, etc., depending on the circumstances and type of the product that is in question. The prototypes used in this case might be physical or virtual. The last stage or the last feasibility analysis that we need to do is financial feasibility. A broad financial analysis is sufficient for the last component of feasibility study for a new venture. If the business venture passes the overall feasibility analysis, the entrepreneur can conduct a more thorough and detailed financial analysis while making the business plan. The financial analysis here would broadly include first the initial capital requirement, that is, first and foremost the entrepreneur needs to estimate how much money will be needed to start the business, that is, to buy capital equipment like machinery, building, technology, hire and train employees, make the product, promote it and sell it in the market, etc. A good estimate of all this should be provided by the feasibility study. The entrepreneur should not make the mistake of underestimating the costs. Next, the entrepreneur needs to discuss the estimated earnings and overall attractiveness of the investment. After estimating the initial cash requirement, the entrepreneur also needs to forecast the earning potential of the proposed idea, that is, a very small or very simple measure of calculating the rate of return on capital invested is by dividing the estimated earnings by the capital invested. A venture should fetch a good return on the capital invested for it to be continued by the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur should also see how easy it is to exit the business in case it fails. The next aspect about the financial feasibility is financial performance of a similar business if there is any. The entrepreneur should also analyze the financial performance of similar already established business to estimate the financial performance of the proposed business. This can be done by going through various research reports which offer reports on many individual firms as well as detailed industry or trend analysis. Not caring about the outcome, a wise entrepreneur subjects his business idea to the feasibility study and also takes the hint from the results whether or not to continue with the proposed business idea. If the results are not favorable, the entrepreneur should drop the idea or revise it to make it a feasible one. If the results show that the idea has the potential to be a profitable business, the entrepreneur should pursue it and use the information gathered during the feasibility analysis as the foundation and move on to making a detailed and thorough business plan. Okay students, now let's talk about the second but very important part of a new venture, which is the business plan. A business plan is an entrepreneur's proposed business venture's written summary. It provides a more comprehensive analysis than a feasibility study, but might build on the foundation of the feasibility study conducted by the entrepreneur. It functions primarily on a roadmap for the entrepreneur and takes an idea that has passed the feasibility analysis to describe how to turn it into a successful business. Two statements are true in this context, that on one hand there is no substitute for a good business plan, and on the other, there is no shortcut to making a solid one. A business plan offers, first of all, a game plan for managing the business successfully. Second, a methodical and genuine evaluation of the endeavor's odds for success in the market. Third, an important tool for attracting capital for the proposed business. Next, it is also a way to evaluate the principal threats facing the venture. Also, a business plan is a tool for comparing the actual results against the targets. Now, the functions and benefits of creating a business plan are many. A business plan describes the direction in which the company wants to go, that is, what are the goals of the company, where it wants to be and how it plans to be there. Its main objectives are to give direction to the entrepreneurs and to help them acquire the financing need to launch and operate the business. Research suggests that whatever be the size of the company, business planning works in favor of the entrepreneur. Those entrepreneurs who invest their effort and time in building these plans are better equipped to face the hostile environment in which the business will operate than those who don't. The main functions of the business plan include: it helps in strategy formulation and charting the future course of action. Also, it helps to attract key employees for the business. It motivates and gives a sense of direction to the manager as well as the employees by providing the broad objectives and the goals of the firm, financial and business forecasts, budgets, target markets, etc. A business plan also helps to determine the target and the benchmarks to compare the actual performance of the business with. It also provides in-depth analysis of the industry, strategic alliances and partners for the firm. A business plan also acts as a prerequisite for attracting investors and obtaining finances for the firm. Now, how do you make this business plan? The entrepreneur himself should play an important role in making the business plan for the proposed venture, because no outsider can understand the concept better than him, and also since the entrepreneur is the driving force behind the business idea, he is the best person to convey the vision and motive behind the business idea. Also, making the business plan will give him the opportunity to carefully analyze and look for his idea in a harsh light of reality. To be able to get adequate financing from the investors, the business plan must pass 3 tests. First is the reality test. Here we are proving that the market for the potential good or service does exist and the potential firm has the capability to offer it with the limited resources it has. The second test is the competitive test. Here we are proving that the potential company has the ability and capability to be different from its competitors in terms of the offering and gain an edge over them. The third test is the value test. Here we are proving that the business venture will fetch the investors high rate of return on their investment because of the idea's ability to offer high profits. A business plan can increase the potential venture's chances of success and also guide it through the new and uncertain experiences. Now let's see what are the major elements of this business plan. Every business plan is as unique as the business itself, and hence there is no one correct way of making a business plan. Generally, the business plan should be around 20 to 25 pages long, but this can also vary with the nature and complexity of the business and purposes of the plan. Even though the basic elements of a business plan may be standard, but each entrepreneur can use his or her unique style to tell the story of the business venture. A business plan may also reflect the personality of the entrepreneur. There are a number of resources and consultants available these days which can guide as to what all shall be included in the business plan. Key elements of the business plan include: first is the title page and the table of contents. Then we have the executive summary. After this, mission statement, company history, business and industry profile, goals and objectives of the firm, business strategy, description of the firm's good or service that they are going to offer, marketing strategy for the same, documenting market claims, competitor analysis, description of the owner and the management team, plan of operation, forecasted financial statements, and the loan or the investment proposal for the investors. Let's discuss some of these briefly. If we talk about the title page and table of content, it is a well designed title page and detailed table of contents for easy navigation, which are a must for a good business proposal. Talking about executive summary, this should be concise summary of the proposed business idea. Okay, it should be a synopsis of the entire plan in a short and crisp manner covering all the relevant points. Coming to the mission statement, this actually states the company's purpose in the broadest manner. It shows the direction in which the company is headed and through what path. Talking about the company history in the business plan, this is applicable for a company which has already been in existence. It shows the company's past activities and performance briefly. Next comes the business and industry profile. This is a brief overview of the market segment or industry in which the company will be operating, and information can also be taken from the feasibility study done by the entrepreneur. Next, we need to talk about the goals and objectives that will be mentioned in the business plan. While goals are long-term and broad statement of company's future plans, objectives are rather short-term, specific targets which are more realistic, more achievable and measurable in nature. Both of these should relate to a company's mission statement. Next, we come to the business strategy. This actually states as to how the company plans to achieve the goals and objectives which have been laid down earlier. Here the entrepreneur explains as to how the company is going to meet and exceed the competition in the market or the industry. Then the entrepreneur should also give a brief description of firm's good or service. Now this is a brief statement of the product or the products that the company is going to offer in a layman language. The features and benefits should be highlighted. Diagrams, drawing, illustrations, etc. can be used wherever necessary. Next, we come to the marketing strategy. This section identifies and describes the company's target customers and how the company is planning to reach them. Next, we need to document the marketing claims. This section supports the claims made in the above section with consumer research, market research, promotion and advertising techniques, pricing, distribution, etc. Next, the entrepreneur needs to talk about the competitor analysis in the business proposal. This section will talk about the competitor assessment done by the entrepreneur and how the proposed venture has an advantage over the existing competitors. Next, the owner needs to talk about the description of the owner himself and the management team that he has. This section gives the resumes of the owner, directors and key management personnel to be able to convince the investors that their money is going into the right hands. Next, we need to talk about the plan of operation. This is a brief description of the type of organization, organizational chart and how the company is planning to use its material and human resources which have been given in the business proposal. Any leases, contracts or any other important agreement relating to the operation of the organization should also be given. Next, the entrepreneur needs to give the forecasted financial statements. This section highlights the financing aspect of the business idea along with the projected or the pro forma financial statements for the next 5 to 6 years. Statements like projected cash flows, income statement, balance sheet, etc. along with break-even and ratio analysis should be included. The entrepreneur should give a realistic picture and not try to fudge the figures. After all of this, we have the loan or the investment proposal. Now this section should state the amount requested, the purpose of this request, plans for repayment and exit strategy for the investors if any. The entrepreneur must specify how he is planning to use the funds requested. In addition to all of these, let's have some basic tips on preparing the business plan that can help to create a more cohesive and impressive overall plan and also save time. First tip that I can give you is to have a cover with the company's name and logo. Second, we should definitely check for spellings and grammar errors. Third, we should create a visual appeal. Fourth, we should make it interesting and compelling. Fifth, demonstrate its profit potential. Sixth, use spreadsheets wherever necessary. 7. Include cash flow projections. 8. Tell the truth always. 9th, keep it concise and crisp. Now, let's see what the lenders are looking for in the business plan. In the process of processing a loan or credit application, lenders like banks, financial institutions, etc. try to evaluate the 5 C's of credit. The higher a business scores on the analysis, the greater is its chance of receiving a loan based on the following 5 criteria. The first criteria is the capital. Before any lender will grant a loan, a small business must on its own have a stable capital base. Undercapitalization is one of the most common reasons for banks rejecting small business loan applications. Second C is the capacity. Lenders and investors expect a business to pass the test of liquidity and be convinced of the firm's ability to meet its regular financial obligations and to repay the bank loan. Next, C is the collateral. Banks are not willing to give unsecured loans. By unsecured loans, we mean those loans which are not backed by any collateral. Collateral includes any asset an entrepreneur pledges to the lender as a security for repayment of the loan. Next C or the fourth C is character. Banks try to evaluate the character of the entrepreneurs on the basis of intangible factors such as honesty, intelligence, competence, ability and determination, and extend loans only to those entrepreneurs whom they deem fit. The last and the final C is the conditions. The conditions surrounding the loan request like potential of the venture, competition, loan purpose, overall economic scenario also affect the owner's chance of receiving funds. The greater the score that a small business gets on the basis of these 5 C's, the higher is the probability that a small business will receive the loan. A solid business plan is essential for raising the finance for a new business because the lenders and investors demand it, and also it serves as a compass to help guide the business as it travels into an uncertain future. But again, this is just one step along the path of starting a new business. Now let's summarize the whole discussion. First point is that feasibility analysis is a preliminary evaluation of the business idea to determine whether it is worth pursuing or not. In other words, it provides a framework by which a go or not to go decision can be reached for the business idea. Also, a well-rounded feasibility study can act as a foundation for a full-fledged business plan. Feasibility study consists of three interrelated concepts. First is the industry or market feasibility, second is the product or service feasibility, and third is the financial feasibility. Next is the Porter's 5 forces model. In his model, the 5 forces are: first, rivalry among the competing firms, second, bargaining power of suppliers, third, bargaining power of buyers, fourth, threat of new entrants, and fifth, threat of substitute products or services. Now let's talk about the business plan. A business plan is an entrepreneur's proposed business venture's written summary. It provides a more comprehensive analysis than a feasibility study, but might be built on the foundation of the feasibility study conducted by the entrepreneur. Main functions of the business plan include: it helps in strategy formulation, it helps to attract key employees, it motivates and gives a sense of direction to the managers as well as the employees, it helps to determine the targets and benchmarks for the company, and it provides an in-depth analysis of the industry, strategic alliances and partners for the firm. Talking about the key elements of a business plan, these are the title page and the table of content, executive summary, mission statement, company history, business and industry profile, goals and objectives, business strategy, description of a firm's good or service, marketing strategy, documenting the marketing claims, competitor analysis, description of the owner and the management team, plan of operation, forecasted financial statements, loan or investment proposal. Now, while analyzing the loan or the investment proposal, lenders analyze the 5 C's of credit, which are capital, capacity, collateral, character and condition. Thank you.